Alright, today we're taking a look at Tentacle Sync. It is this product right over here, and it will simplify your life if you guys are shooting with multiple cameras or audio recorders and you have to deal with sync in post. So a lot of guys who are doing weddings, they're doing concerts, reality shows, any of those types of events where you have to take all of your camera footage and all of your different audio recorders and you have to sync them up in post. The Tentacle Sync will allow you to do that with frame accuracy, and it does it in seconds. It's very, very fast, and it's because it injects time into the audio of your camera or audio recorder. So I've already configured mine to match the way I shoot, which is basically frame rate. You want to choose 25 frames, 24 frames, or whatever frames you're working with. That's most of the configuration that you have to do. Outside of that, it's pretty much just turn it on and go. So what we're going to do is we're going to power this on by pressing the little button here. You'll notice that the LED light kicks on and it goes red. Now, instead of just turning this on, I'm actually going to press the button and hold it for a few seconds. So when I do that, it first goes red and then it will go green. And what I've done is I've set this one as the master clock. We're going to take one of these cables here. It's just your basic stereo cable, 3.5. And I'm going to plug it into the one that's red. And you'll notice that it'll go from red to green. And then I'll choose the next one and I'll plug it in and it'll go from red to green, which means that it is in sync now. So when it's in red, it means it's waiting. Green means it's all synced up. So if you were to take a look at all of these Tentacle Sync products here, they are blinking at the exact same time. They are perfectly in sync. So this is a very accurate clock here. These products will run for 40 hours non-stop, and they're rechargeable via USB. There's also a setting that will automatically shut them off if they don't detect anything plugged in here for, say, 2 hours, but you could change that setting. Right now mine is set for 2 hours. If I throw this in my bag while it's on and I don't have a cable in here, it'll auto power off. So now that we have them all powered up and in sync, to get them into our cameras, all we have to do is plug them into our mic input or audio input. So we have this cable here, and then we'll plug it to the mic input of our GH4. Now keep in mind, this will work on any camera that has an input, A6300, even a GoPro, and I think you can use it for an iPhone as well. Now if you can see my meter here, you'll notice that on one side it's a constant signal, even when I'm not talking. And on the other side, you'll see that there are some levels because the Tentacle Sync actually has a microphone in here. So while it's sending timecode audio to one channel of audio, the other side is still getting scratch audio. A lot of people still want scratch audio in their cameras, just as a reference. A lot of guys may still want to use their own custom microphone. So all you have to do is change the cable out to a splitter. You can see we have a splitter cable here, and this is where we would input our own custom microphone. So we would have one plugged into the camera, one plugged into the Tentacle Sync, and we could have one plugged into our as-in microphone. When you receive the Tentacle Sync, they all have hook and loop. So there's Velcro on the back here, and they give you a patch of Velcro that you could stick onto, say, your cage to leave the Tentacle Sync attached. So if I wanted to attach it up here, I could just apply some Velcro, and then I can attach the Tentacle Sync. So this would be your basic setup here. We have our Tentacle Sync on top, and then we have it input into our camera's audio, and it's split to take a signal from our as-in on-camera microphone here. So we would get good scratch audio and also time code to sync later in post. Now for cameras like the Ursa Mini that has an XLR, you would just use a different cable. Now over here we're injecting timecode audio into one side, onto the left side of the Ursa Mini, and on the other side we could still add our own microphone. Here's one with an A6500. You see how small this is, very, very lightweight product, and you just let it run all day and your video footage will be easy to sync in post. Now timecode audio is not proprietary. As a matter of fact, a lot of software can read timecode audio, even DaVinci Resolve, so you can just input your footage and it will help you sync all of your multi-camera angles and all of your audio recorders. Now the Tentacle Sync not only provides timecode audio to devices like GH4 or GH5 and Sony A6300, cameras that don't have an easy way of jamming the timecode in, this can be a master clock that you can use to jam sync different devices like the Ursa Mini Pro here that has a dedicated timecode input, as well as a Zoom F4 audio recorder that has timecode input as well. Now, just for reference, let's take a look at the Zoom F4 here. I'm not sure if you can see the clock. It says 18 hours and 7 minutes. Now, if we look at the different Ursas up here on the screen, you could probably see where we've got like 306 here, 707, and 907. So these Ursas are all running at different time codes. So let me show you how we're going to sync this up. We're going to turn this on. Remember, we want to hold the button down until it boots up green. Now that's our master clock. We're going to take a 3.5 to a B and C because that's how we input timecode into the Zoom F4 as well as all the Ursas. And we're just going to jam them in. First, we're going to start with the Zoom F4. So as you can see, it says 18 hours. We've already changed our setting for jamming the timecode. Now let's plug this in and let's see what happens. All right, now if you look, we have 3 hours and 8 minutes. So let's go ahead and do that to all the Ursas here. So we're going to use the input, the timecode input. You see that says TCN. We're just going to plug this in. Let's go to this one over here. Jam this one up. We'll go over to the next one. We'll jam this one up. Alright, so all of these devices are jam synced. Jam synced means that we don't have an external timecode generator. We've just synchronized all of the timecode within every device here. And I bring that up because depending on the camera that you guys are using and the audio recorder, they all have different clocks. And if they're not good, they're going to drift over time. So if we're shooting like a 12-hour day, some of these will start to drift and they won't be in perfect sync. If you want to maintain perfect sync, then you would maintain the Tentacle Sync on every camera, on every audio recorder. So this right here would be plugged into my Ursa, and I would have one of these on every one of my cameras and on my Zoom F4, because this Tentacle Sync has a very, very accurate clock, and we could run all day and it'll have perfect sync. Now the Ursa Mini is pretty good, Zoom F4 is pretty good, so they should be in sync, and I think they're going to carry sync throughout the day. These are kind of your higher end cameras, so they're pretty decent, but just for kicks, let's go ahead and take a picture. I've already had these cameras running for several minutes now. Let's go ahead and take a picture. What I'm trying to do is grab the clock on all of the screens. Try to get a freeze frame, basically. Now, let's zoom in on this image here, and let's see what we have. So if we look at Ursa 1 here, it says 344.04. And we look at the F4, 344.04.19. Looks exactly the same as the Ursa. I don't know if you can see that. And then we go to this one, 344.04.19. And this one as well. So we are in perfect frame sync across all our devices. That's how you jam sync with the Tentacle Sync. So it's much more than just piping in timecode audio into smaller, cheaper cameras. It's also used for professional cameras as well to jam sync all of them. Now, I like the H1 with a decent sized card. You can record more than 15 hours non-stop. With a single AA battery, it lasts a long time. So this is something you could just kind of throw over at house audio or the DJ, and we can inject timecode audio into this. What we'll do is we'll plug one end into the Zoom H1. Then we would take the timecode on one side, and we have another side here to inject the audio. This is the same splitter we used on the camera earlier. So we could take this and just have a line in from house audio. And once we drop our video files into our software, it will line up frame accurate to the audio recording from the Zoom H1. Now, some of the other things that you can get are these colored rings here, and you could replace the rings on the Tentacle Sync here so that you can have different color ones depending on different cameras or audio recorders that you're using. So let's talk about changing the settings in here. It's actually very easy. They give you a cable that you can connect it directly into any iOS device that has an audio input. Now, unfortunately, it's not directly to Lightning, so you do need some sort of audio input, whether it be an iPod Touch or an iPhone. As long as you have a 3.5 input, you can connect this in there, launch the app, and change all the settings. For Android as well, there's a USB Otg cable, and as I mentioned before, you charge it via USB, so they've included a couple of small USB cables for you. Very simple to do. You could take an iPhone or an Android, use the proper cable. Remember, this goes into your headphone port, and then it goes into the Tentacle Sync. And right now it's 3.5, and that's why you can't use it on a iPhone 7 with Lightning. You definitely need a headphone port. Now what you'll notice is we have a message that headphone volume is too low. So we need to turn this guy on so it could send a signal into the headphone port. This is on and it's sending a signal, but if you still get headphone volume too low, then you could increase the headphone volume on your iPhone. You'll notice that once we do it, we say headphone volume is okay. Then we just hit connect. We are now connected to the device where we could change our settings. So here you could do 23.98 if you're doing Sony or Canon, for instance. My GH4 could do 24 frames a second, 25 frames a second if you're in Europe, 29.97, 30 frames a second. So you basically would change this device here, because remember, this is timecode, which is like a frame count basically, and you want to make sure you're matching your frames per second on all your devices, as well as this, so it could sync up. Now you could rename the device here. Let's take a look at the extended area, which is more of your firmware and calibration. And here's your auto power off time. So remember, mine is set to 2 hours. If you disconnect this plug while this is on, it'll auto shut off in about 2 hours is my setting here. That's just in case you throw it in your bag and you forget to turn it off. The auto mic level enable, just leave that alone. You might see here the output volume, whether it's mic or line in. It actually auto detects is what they say, so you don't have to worry about that too much. And then there's a little bit more information here for time and date stuff. But pretty easy, you just connect it. Pretty much the only thing I change is frame rate. If you have something special, you want to change your frame rate here. Anyways, that's a quick look at the app. Let's get into syncing in post. Alright, so after you download the software, to get the license, you're going to plug your Tentacle Sync via USB to your computer. Then you can pull the device license from that product. Now you can get one license per product that you purchase. So you're going to click on get a free device license, and then it'll bring you to a web page. You fill out some information, grab the license key, and click close, and your software should be activated now. Alright, so now we're going to look at the files that we recorded and how to sync up with the Tentacle Sync Studio software. Let's go bring up one of these cameras very quickly, and let's take a listen to it because it's an interesting sound. So if we play this video file here, so you notice that it has that weird sound. That's the timecode audio being sent to the left side of the camera recording. Remember, we still have scratch audio. We have recorded audio that we're going to sync up later on this, but I'm going to show you how to sync up the camera angles because it's very simple. You'll notice we have a backstage camera, a left camera, a middle, and then a right. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring up Tentacle Sync here. So let me find it right there. This is the Tentacle Sync Studio. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag one of these folders here with all of the files in it. And then I'm just going to select all of these files here, and I'm going to call it group 1. So all these files are from camera 1, and then I'm going to drag this one in here. This is a different camera, and then I'll call this group 2. There's probably a different way of doing it, but this is how I've been doing it. So I'll call this group 2. Let's do the other camera here. And go here and here. Call this group 3. And then we have one more camera. So there's 4 cameras altogether. Now this was probably 3 hours of recording almost, I'm guessing. More than 2 hours. And you'll see how easy it is to sync up all of these files. So I'll call this 4, right? So we have different cameras here, different groups. And then all we have to do, I'm going to leave this multicam mode in audio mode here. We're going to hit this sync map. That's it. We have all our files synced up here. If you look, we have 4 different camera angles. Let's scrub over here. Let's see. Oh, actually we have one camera that dropped off over there. But here you can see we have a camera here. We have a camera here, here. And you notice that they're in the exact same position, frame accurate because of the time code. You'll see down here this version 1 gets dropped off. This camera died. This was a backstage camera and it died like towards the end of the concert. But here we have the other camera angles. Here's Melvin over here, so we could see he's strumming. You can see he's strumming here, here. So it is frame accurate. We can even play this. And then you can see that we're still in sync here. So now what we need to do is just bring this is already a multicam edit here, so all we have to do is export this. So I could export this as XML. I'll just export it here, the version of Final Cut I want, 1.6. Now I could have it open up in Final Cut, include the sync clips. I don't really need that, and I'll just call this concert or something like that. And so yeah, it'll create a project automatically for us. So let's save this. It's going to go through its thing, and it's going to open up FCPX for us. Project right over here. These are all the files kind of laid out in tracks, but what we want is we want the multicam, right? So we could just for this project here, I'm just going to remove this project, and then I'm just going to drag down the multicam clip. Now in the multicam clip, if you guys use Final Cut Pro, you could see we have all the different camera angles over here, and they're all in sync. So we could set the active audio angle. Let's just call this video angle 2, and then you can see here's Chrissy and Erica. And then all we have to do, if we want to change camera angles, we just click on the top here. So here's AJ, we'll just play this out. And then I just have to click whenever I want to cut. Now this is still processing. It's faster to do this in proxy mode because these are 4K files. So it kind of struggles a little bit, but if we switch to proxy mode, then it'll play at 100% speed. But anyways, that's how easy it is to bring a multicam edit into Final Cut Pro using Tentacle Sync. You do notice that it strips the audio, and then it combines the right channel into a stereo track, so it gets rid of the timecode audio. So we'll play this again here. So yeah, Tentacle Sync just kind of puts everything together super easy. If you guys are doing multicam shooting and you want to edit really quickly, you want frame accurate syncing, you definitely go with Tentacle Sync. It's affordable, it's really easy to use, and it's been just has saved us a lot of time in post because we're not spending hours trying to get things synced up properly. It just works so well. So that's kind of a quick look at the software. Alright, so in that last example, we used the Tentacle Sync on all Panasonic cameras, and we used the timecode audio to sync everything up. If you're using something like an Ursa Mini or a recorder, audio recorder like the Zoom F4 that can support timecode with their internal clocks, the software will automatically detect that there are no audio timecode, and it would use the timecode embedded in the audio or video file. So there's a couple of different ways the software will read timecode, but as long as you have timecode on your cameras and audio recorders, and cameras that don't support timecode, you could use this again in the audio file. It will sync up so quickly. You saw how fast that synced up. It was literally not even a second, and it got everything laid out perfectly frame accurate. So these things have been super handy. Now a lot of people will say, oh, use plural eyes. That's great if you have the audio. That also has to analyze the audio, which takes a little bit more time. Now, in our situation, we were planning on having cameras outside the theater, inside the theater, on backstage. And when you're moving cameras around like that, they're not going to sync up because they don't share the same audio. So with this timecode, it doesn't matter where the camera is. It doesn't matter if you start and stop video throughout the day. If they're all running on the same clock, it's going to sync up perfectly. So that's why you would use Tentacle Sync. Highly suggested. If you guys have any questions, I'm going to have links below this video. Also on the blog, cheesycam.com.